Thank you for attending Clearfly's portal training, Changing Voice Group Information and Real-Time Switch Info. My name is Tom Hall, and I will be your host for the next 30 minutes or so. What we will cover during this session will be three distinct sections of the voice group and real-time switch info. We'll cover the voice group information, real-time switch information, as well as the telephone number information. Under the voice group information, we will cover changing the CNAM, or the name that is produced when a phone number is dialed, updating 911 addresses, viewing local calling areas, which is important if the customer is using metered SIP trunks, view status of the phone numbers, downloading a list of the numbers if the customer needs those numbers or you need the list of numbers for your records. Regarding the telephone number information, we'll also show how you can change individual CNAMs, enabling messaging, which is the SMS or MMS messaging, as well as changing forwarding. Under the real-time switch info, we'll adjust the trunk quantity, change the forwarding for the entire voice group, enable bursting, enable international calling, how to block certain phone numbers, changing the registration type of the SIP trunk, as well as testing 911. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We are going to be looking at a demo portal for Clearfly. When you log into the Clearfly portal, depending on what your permission levels are, your screens may look very similar to this or may look a little bit different. As indicated in previous training sessions, the left-hand side is going to be completely up to you and what your view is going to be on the recent section. The quick links are always important. Service verification, of course, if you need to verify that we can port a number or provide service in a certain zip code, that's where that's going to come into play. And any tickets if you are automatically watching tickets. So for this section here, we're going to go into this middle section and we're going to focus right on the management support provisioning dashboard. So let's go ahead and go to there, and we will utilize widgets as a customer. So what you would typically end up doing is come into the management. So again, I'm going to back up. You're going to come to the management dashboard if you have that permission level. You're going to come to account access, and you're going to find your customer. Some of you have many customers, so you can of course sort by name, or if you do know the customer's name, you can just utilize this search bar, which is what I utilize most often. So you just type in widgets, and it takes you to their account. Okay, so since we're going to be covering the voice group, telephone numbers, and the real-time switch info, we are going to go to the voice group tab. In here, most customers will have a single voice group. This example does have two, but we're going to focus on the voice group number 1. So if we click on VG1, it automatically populates that page, gives you a brief rundown of that voice group, the voice group number, who is what's the customer's name that it belongs to, their current service address, the default calling name, which we'll come back to in just a moment. It's going to show that the status is active. It's a registered SIP trunk. There's 8 concurrent call paths or 8 SIP trunks. Bursting is disabled. The directory number is here. There is multi-location trunking enabled, which means that they have multiple 911 registrations. And we did cover that in a prior training session, so we won't talk about that. If you need to see the password, of course, you can click on Show Password. And the service on this voice group has been active since 4/23/2020. and then it also gives us a list of numbers. So let's begin by changing the voice group CNAM. So again, it's the calling name. This section here is the default, all right? If you change it at this moment, all of these phone numbers, if they were using something else, and currently they are defaulting to the CNAM or the default CNAM, but if they have something else in here, they will not change, all right? This is really for adding new numbers. So in order to do that, you're going to click Manage, and you're going to change this default calling name, and we're just going to change it to Widgets LLC. All right. And as it states, this is a calling name that will be populated as the default on all new number orders placed on the voice group. All right. Since these are existing numbers, you are going to have to go in there and change the individual CNAM. All right. So we'll come back to that in just a moment as well, when we come down to changing and manipulating the telephone numbers themselves. So you can make that change there. If you need to update the 911 addresses, again, you can scroll through this list here. Anyone that has a 911 address registered to the number is going to have the magnifying glass. And of course, you can click View. And if they've got a lot of numbers, there may be, maybe scrolling for a little bit. So I prefer coming to the registration button. You're going to click on the registration button. It's going to show you all the phone numbers, the CNAM that's associated with it, and the address. If you need to change any of those numbers from the voice group page that we were just on, you're going to click on Manage. You're going to scroll through here. The suggestion is going to be the service address. All right, but if you need to make the change to something else, then let's just do 8275 Belmont Valley Street, and we'll make that Las Vegas, Nevada, 89123. And at this point, you may want to change that CNAM as well to LLC. And you're going to click Start Validation. All right. It's going to show you their existing registration for this phone number. And you're going to change that phone number's 911 address to 8275 Belmont Valley Street, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89123. And you're going to click Provision. Okay. Once that's done, it will come up and it will tell you successfully updated 911 registrations. All right, let's go back to the voice group. So we've went through changing the CNAM, updating the 911 addressing from the voice group's main page. Now let's look at the local calling areas. So again, this is relevant if the customer has metered SIP trunks. As you know, metered SIP trunks, the customer will pay long distance rates for anything outside of their local calling area. So if they are interested in knowing what the local calling area is, you're going to click on the local calling area, and here it will show you all of the local calling areas for this number. So as you can see, they're all Billings, Montana. Okay. Let's go ahead and go back. As far as the status of the numbers, again, we're going to scroll down towards the bottom of this page where it lists out the 55 phone numbers. And you can see that this number 406-255-1234 is currently provisioning, so it is not active. All right. So most likely that number has a, we're porting that number in, or we're getting a new number and it hasn't been activated yet. But most of these will show active. Okay. Now, while we're on that topic, let's go ahead and look at downloading the phone numbers. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the phone numbers, and you're going to click the As Text box. All right. You get a couple options here. If you just want to copy and paste or copy this range of numbers, you can do so. If you would like to do a full view, there will be a copy button there, and you simply copy it and paste it into whatever document that you would like, whether it's an email or a Word document or Excel file or whatever you'd like. If you would like to see the phone numbers with the individual CNAMs, you can go ahead and click that. And because it's a demo portal, it's not actually showing those, but typically it would show some as being Widgets LLC and others as Widgets Inc. All right, the use function here is really just, these are all phone numbers for, it's listed as a subscriber, but they're phone numbers for, or a DID number for the trunks. Okay. All right, so that's really what I wanted to cover with regards to what you can do on this main voice group page. Again, we've talked about this in a previous session as well, but if you do click the action button here, you could look at call analytics, which is in the reports and analytic presentation. You can also look at any recent events. So if Clearfly has received any error codes or alarm codes, if you click on that, it's going to show up here, and it's going to tell you when it was done, or when it started, when it cleared, and how long it lasted. All right, and we're not going to cover those in details at this moment as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the telephone numbers itself. Actually, before I do that real quick, let's just look at these other tabs. If there's any orders pending for this voice group, it's going to show up here as under the orders tab. If there's related orders, meaning there's a local port order, you're going to be pulling in a phone number to this voice group. That is going to show up. If there's a toll-free number that we're going to be moving in, it's also going to show up as a related order. And these local numbers, those are new numbers that we're going to be requesting. All right. Directory listing, if one of the phone numbers was listed in the white pages, it would be listed here as well, so you'll know what that number is. And then any tickets assigned to this voice group, or associated with this voice group, I should say, will show up here with an indication of how many active tickets are there. All right, once they're closed, and they won't show an indicator. If you'd like to look at all the tickets that were ever created under this voice group, again, you'd go to the Tickets tab, click Show All, and if there were additional ones, they would be listed, including the closed ones. Okay, so let's go back to the Numbers tab. Now, what can we do with the individual phone numbers themselves? Couple things. So these flags over on the far right, any number that has messaging enabled will show an M. All right, and if you hover your mouse over that, it'll indicate what that flag is for. So if we look at, we're not going to look at these two because they already have messaging. So let's look at 406-794-2003. If we click on that button, now we're looking at the individual number, and there's a bunch of things that we can do on here as well. All right. Calling name. Currently, it is generated. All right. That means it is generated from the account itself. So prior, since it's a currently active number, it pulled the CNAM from the original setup on the voice group, which was Widgets Inc. okay? If you need to change that, you're going to click change. You're going to put in whatever phone number or whatever name you would like. So let's say we're going to make it Clearfly Tom, okay? This can be up to 15 characters. If you type in a whole bunch more characters, so anything beyond 15, Tom Hall, it's not going to let you, okay? So a little safety precaution there. And then once you have that set the way that you like, you're going to go ahead and change the calling name. All right. So now you can review it, calling name for any time this phone number is pushed out through your phone system. It's going to show this phone number, the 406-794-2003, and the name associated with it is going to be Clearfly Tom. All right. 911, that's to set a specific address. And if you want to do that, because maybe this is my own phone that I'm going to, or this is my personal number, and I'm going to be working from home. And so I'm going to come into the Manage button. We're going to add. And we're going to put in our address. So we'll just use the same address because it's there to make it easy. And 89123. Start validation. And we're going to provision. Okay. Messaging. If you would like to receive text messages to this phone number, you're going to need to enable messaging. So as it states in here, you can have up to 10 email addresses. So anytime a text message is received, that message will be emailed to any of the addresses that are here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and put in my address. Sorry, not .com, .net. And I always enable quick reply. So what quick reply does is when you receive that email with that text message, there will be a reply button right in that email. And if you click the reply button, it takes you to a screen. You can go ahead and send a text message back. All right. If that is not enabled, then you are going to need to log into the Clearfly portal, go to that phone number, go to the messaging section, and reply that way. So almost always, I have rarely seen anybody not enable quick reply. So once that's done, you're going to click add messaging, and it'll indicate that it is added. Okay. Other things on this one, the action button allows you to disconnect a number or order a CFAX and convert this to a CFAX number. That is going to be covered in the orders presentations that will also be available. Real-time switch info. So if we look at the real-time switch info for a phone number, what you have the ability to do here is change the forwarding. Clearfly offers two forwarding types: unavailable forwarding, which is what do you want to have, or where do you want that phone number to call if the phone system loses connectivity. All right. The phone system can lose connectivity for many reasons. The internet goes down, power goes out, phone system goes down. For any reason, if Clearfly loses connectivity to the phone system, any phone call to this number will automatically be routed to whatever number you have set in here. Unconditional forwarding is just a hard forward. So the calls will never ever hit the PBX. Anytime somebody calls this number, it's automatically going to be forwarded to whatever number you put in here. All right. To change those, you're going to click on the Manage button. Since by default, all the numbers are inheriting the unavailable forward on the voice group, which we will get to next, you're going to want to disable that if you want to have a specific number for this DID. So you're going to say inherit no. You're going to put in the phone number that you would like it to forward to. Yep. 205-4701. And you're going to click update. All right. So now we can see that the forwarding for the unavailable forwarding is enabled. And again, if we lose connectivity to the PBX, all calls to 406-794-2003 will automatically be routed to 702-205-4701. All right. Let's go back to the phone numbers. And let's go back to the voice group. Okay, so now let's talk about this real-time switch info. So this is the real-time switch info for the main voice group itself. If we click on real-time switch info, again, it's going to show the summary name. It's going to show what voice group you're logged into, the directory number, the calling number. All right. So if we click that and change it, typically we let the PBX or the phone system dictate the outbound calling number, but if for whatever reason you want Clearfly to do so, you can set the calling number here. Now just keep in mind, as this note indicates, that once you make that change and you click update, any phone call that is currently active is going to be dropped. All right, so you'll need to make sure that you look down at the active calls and make sure there's no active calls up. All right, I rarely see this ever entered. And again, I'm not quite sure why you would want Clearfly to control the outbound caller ID versus a PBX. So we're just going to close it. The default NPA or NPA is the area code for the service address. Default numbers, DID digits, so that can be manipulated all the way down to 3 if you'd like. Most phone systems today do want to see all 10 digits, but again, if your phone system does not, you can come in here and make that change. On the right side, you can see that the service is active. It's currently configured. Unavailable is not set. So this unavailable forward number here, as we saw on the previous session or the previous section when we were talking about changing the forwarding on the telephone numbers, it said that it was going to be inherited. And which means that it's going to look at the voice group unavailable forward. Well, in this case, there is no unavailable forward. So if we lost connectivity to the phone system, the calls wouldn't go anywhere. So you always want to make sure that you have an unavailable forward number set up on the voice group. So to do so, you're going to click on the edit button. You're going to enter that phone number, and we're going to make it my office number, 702-727-8975. Update, and that means any phone number that does not have a specific number set as the unavailable forward number is automatically going to route to 702-727-8975. Same scenario with unconditional forward. If you want to forward all the phone calls to every DID number someplace else as a hard forward, you can come in here, click the edit button, and make that change. All right, just keep in mind that if you do that, there will be no incoming phone calls reaching the PBX. All right. 411 calls, some people don't like to allow 411 calls, mainly because there's a charge to them. Most people don't use 411 anymore. Most people just search it on the internet. But if you want to disable that, you're going to simply come into the edit button and you're going to bar directory assistance calls. Anonymous call rejection. So if you hover over these items, it'll tell you what it is. Anonymous call rejections automatically reject incoming calls for which the caller's number is withheld. So if it's blocked or comes up as restricted, those calls will automatically be rejected and they will not ring the PBX. Okay, and again, by default, it's disabled. You can enable that if you would like. International calling by default is also disabled. If the customer wants to make international calls or needs to make international calls, what you're going to need to figure out is what countries they're going to call. Because if we come into the edit button, it's going to ask you what tier do you want to have opened up. So what Clearfly has done is they've taken a look at every single country in the world, and they've grouped them into 3 tiers based on international toll fraud. All right, so tier 0 is the lowest risk. It's about 80% of the countries. Most of Europe falls into there. Most numbers in China, most numbers in Asia in general will fall into tier 0. Tier 1 are medium risk countries. In tier 2, certain Jamaican countries have a very high international toll fraud risk. So they're going to be listed here, same as some countries on the continent of Africa. So you'll need to figure out from the customer what countries they're going to call and then decide which tiers to open up. So we're just going to click tier 0. We're going to update tier. And now it says international calling 0 or tier 0. Okay. To determine where those countries fall, you would scroll down to the bottom. You'd come to tools. You go to international rates and tiers, and you would download the spreadsheet, and it'll actually list out what tiers each country falls into. All right. All right, so let's come back up. I did skip over block numbers. So Clearfly will allow you to block up to 10 phone numbers. So anytime this number 406-867-5309 calls any of your DID numbers, it's automatically going to be blocked. All right. And again, you can go ahead and block up to 10. If you need more than 10, most likely you're going to block those on the phone system side. 911 mode, there's really, I'm going to say there's three modes. There's active, which means any call to 911 is going to go to the local PSAP or the 911 call center. If it is in test mode, the calls will be automatically verified. So what happens is you dial 911, Clearfly intercepts it, tells you the service address and the phone number, so you can verify that those are correct. All right. Disable, never seen that set up, and not really sure from a liability standpoint why you would ever want to disable 911 calls. So in essence, what happens in that scenario is you're going to, if somebody dials 911, the call just gets disconnected. Okay. So if we want to make that change, so let's say we've changed some of the 911 addressing on specific DID numbers, and we want to verify that, you're going to come to the edit box. You're going to change to test mode. And at that point, you're going to grab a phone. You're going to dial out or call 911 using a phone that is pushing that phone number out as a caller ID. And again, it will let you know that the phone number, or read back to you the phone number and the address associated with it. Just in case you forget to switch it back over, it will automatically revert back to active status after 6 hours. All right, little protection for you, little protection for us. So there's that already in place. But after you run your test, typically you would come back to the edit button, you'd come back and change it to active mode. All right. MLT, which is multi-location trunk, means that you have more than one 911 registration. If your customer prior to you logging in here did not, and you need to enable that, again, you would come to the edit button and you would change it to MLT. And at that point, you can go ahead and set the 911 addresses. Concurrent calls, that's a number of SIP trunks a customer currently has. If you need to increase that, you can. It will tell you the lowest you can go is what they were originally contracted for, and the highest is going to be some quantity above that. In this scenario, it's 25, so you can go up as high as 25. We're going to say they're going to double, and they're going to go to 16. And as soon as you do this, you enter the amount and you click confirm, they now have 16 SIP trunks. All right, and we will be invoicing on a prorated basis from that day moving forward for 16 SIP trunks. Bursting, so what bursting is it allows the customer to have 2 standby SIP trunks that there is no cost for. And if their concurrent calls are all being used, so if they're on 16 calls in this example, and they need to make another phone call, they would access one of these standby bursting trunks. Each time they access it, whether it's incoming or outgoing, there is a charge of 25 cents. So to enable that, you're going to come to the edit button, click edit, you're going to click enable, and now they're all set with the 2 additional standby trunks. Okay. This middle section here, the service status, again, it'll tell you the active number of calls. It tells you that we do have a connection with the phone system and there's currently no alarms. If there were any alarms, it would actually show that. All right. The registration details, if the SIP trunks are registered versus static, and you want to see what we're connecting to, which should be the PBX or some type of session border controller, you're going to click on load registration details. It's going to tell you the IP address that we're communicating with. And if the PBX does provide some information about it, it will also show that as a user agent. Down in the SIP configuration section, again, if you're currently set up as a registered SIP trunk and you want to convert that to a static, you can go ahead and do that here. You simply type in the IP address. Typically, port 5060 is going to be used. But again, there is a red little indicator that says the minute you do that, any active calls will be dropped. So keep that in mind. It also tells you that you're going to need to change the carrier configuration on your phone system to peer.cfly.co rather than sc.cfly.co, which is the one we use for registered SIP trunks. Okay. Vice versa, if you're currently set up as static and you want to convert to registered, you can do it the same way. All right. It's going to show you the SIP domain that the PBX needs to be looking at. It's going to give you the username, password if you'd like it. The firewall setting here is really if you're doing a static configuration. The codec preference, so typically most PBXs use a G711 codec now. If for whatever reason you have set your PBX to only do G729 as your first choice, you can come in here to the edit button and you can make some changes. All right, so currently G711 is the preferred one. If that's not available, it will go to G29. If you want G729 as your preferred codec to be used, you can do that. If that's not available, it'll switch to G711, okay? If you're not sure, I would always go with G711 and G729, and you're gonna update. All right, so there it is. T.38 support is faxing over SIP. If you are using an analog port on the phone system that is then plugged into a fax machine and you want to fax over the SIP trunks, you're going to want to enable that. All right. I will give you a word of caution on that. The more pages of faxes that are sent and received, the less success rate you're going to have on that, just mainly because it is, converting from an analog signal to a digital signal and so forth, or backwards. So faxing over SIP is not 100% reliable, especially the more pages that you go beyond 5. All right. DTMF relay is not going to be changed. RTP payload not going to be changed. All right. And that is it. So that is really what I wanted to cover on this section, or this training section here. I wanted to go over the voice group, the telephone numbers, and the real-time switch info. And hopefully this has provided some additional insight to you. As I mentioned before, my name is Tom Hall. Here is my contact information. This is also the contact information for your primary point of contact from a sales perspective at Clearfly. Depending on who your account manager is, it could be Sam Johnson, Bob Jenkins, or Rob Lewis. That is it, folks. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to reach out to any of the 4 of us. We are always here to help you in any way that we can. Thanks again.